Hello and welcome. So today we're going to tackle a really big idea, but we're going to do it with a surprisingly simple metaphor. It's one that explains how we make sense of our world and, more importantly, why our attempts to do that are kind of destined to be a little bit broken. Let's get into it. Okay, just picture this for a second. This image. It might seem a little strange at first, but trust me, it's the perfect key for unlocking a really fundamental problem in our modern world. That net and those jugs, you can almost think of them as a blueprint for how we structure reality itself.
All right, so let's break this whole image down. First things first, what are the jugs?
So the jugs. Think of them as basically any container we use to hold meaning. A jug could be an identity, right? Like your gender or your job. It could be an academic field, like history or physics. It could even be a whole institution, like a university or a government. They're all just categories we created to give our world some kind of shape and structure. And then you've got the net. The net is the bigger thing, the structure that holds all of these jugs together. You could think of it as the legal system, or the global economy, or even something like a social media algorithm. It's the invisible stuff that connects and kind of constrains everything. And this right here gets us to the core issue. This is the heart of the paradox. See, these containers, they're not perfect, not even close. Every single one of them leaks. No category, no identity, no system can perfectly contain the fluid, messy reality of what it's trying to hold. So, we have these jugs that leak, all held together by a net. How does this simple picture create such a powerful paradox? Let's really dig into the contradiction at the heart of it all. Okay, so the paradox is this. The very act of trying to contain something fluid, like a person's identity, in a fixed container, well, it actually distorts it. Yeah, we make it understandable, we make it neat, but in doing so, we change what it fundamentally is. So containment helps us, but it also undermines itself. And here's where the real conflict lies. On one side, you have our systems, our nets, and they just crave stability and clear, sharp boundaries. But on the other side, you have our messy, human reality, which especially today is super fluid, it's fragmented, and it's constantly changing. We are always in motion, but the jugs, they're designed to be still.
Now, this core tension creates all sorts of fascinating, kind of trippy feedback loops. You've got recursion, where our container for containers needs its own container. And then there's performativity, where the second you name something, like artist, you're both creating that identity and immediately starting to police its boundaries.
Okay, so I know this might all feel a little bit abstract. So let's shift gears from the theory and look at where we can actually see these jugs leaking in our everyday lives, because you see it everywhere. I mean, this happens constantly. Think about identity categories in politics. They can both empower people and, at the same time, totally oversimplify them. Academic departments create these rigid boundaries that cool, interdisciplinary work is always leaking across. Even the way a museum organizes its artifacts, that contains them within a very specific story. But let's zoom in on one example that affects pretty much all of us.
Just think about it for a second. Your social media profile, your bio, your photos, your posts, it's a container. It's a jug that's designed to hold a certain version of you. It gives you a defined shape on the platform, right? A way for everyone else to quickly understand who you are.
And the algorithm? Well, that's the net. It takes your little profile jug, along with millions of others, and it weaves them all together. It sorts you, it categorizes you, it connects you to other people, all based on the very limited information held inside that jug.
But does it really? Of course not. It leaks. It leaks like crazy. It can't possibly capture your full complexity, or your contradictions, or your changing moods and thoughts. It's a flattened, simplified version. And that gap between your full self and your profile, that's the leakage.
So what does it actually feel like to live inside this system? To know you're in a jug, and that jug is caught in a net, and to know that the whole thing is leaking? There's a fantastic term for this experience: ambiguous solidity. You know that feeling? It's when a category, like your job title, feels completely solid and real and meaningful, right up until the moment it's put under pressure, and then it suddenly feels totally inadequate, totally fake. And living with that constant ambiguity can lead to something else called hyperreflexivity. That's the moment you become intensely aware that you're being put in a box. Your identity can start to feel less like who you are and more like a role you're playing for an audience. And this brings us to a really crucial question. How does all this make you feel?
I mean, is the fact that these containers are imperfect a source of anxiety, a feeling that nothing is stable? Or is it maybe liberating? A recognition that you can't really be pinned down. For most of us, it's probably a little bit of both.
So if we're all living in this leaky world, what are we supposed to do about it? Is the only answer just to smash all the jugs and embrace the chaos? Well, let's explore a better way forward.
The answer isn't to smash every container and just descend into total chaos. We actually need jugs. We need categories to communicate and build societies. The real goal is to become better, more thoughtful architects of the containers we build.
So how do we do that? 3 strategies really stand out. First, we design pragmatic jugs, so containers that are minimal and super easy to change or revise. Second, we build pluralized nets. Think flexible, overlapping systems instead of one single rigid grid. And finally, we create meta-governance. This is basically a process for auditing our own jugs to see if they still fit reality and for getting rid of them if they don't.
So in the end, maybe trying to escape is the wrong goal entirely. Perhaps the real challenge isn't breaking out of the net, but learning how to live within it honestly, to acknowledge the leaks, to see the flaws, and to consciously choose how these containers shape us, and not the other way around. Now that's a thought. Thanks for joining me.